Welcome back to Flying Upstream, where we explore the raw, real, and revolutionary paths that call us home to our truth. Today's guest is a true free spirit, a woman who has defined who has defied every diagnosis, rewrote her story, and reclaimed her power through consciousness, creativity, and deep emotional and spiritual alignment. At 29 years old, Donna was diagnosed with lupus, a disease doctors told her she'd have for life, one that left her debilitating in pain and fatigue and as a new mother. But Donna said no, not to the disease, but to the belief that it had to be the final word. She turned inward, activated a powerful spiritual reset, and over 33 years later, she remains lupus free. A lifelong performer, creator, and channel, Donna has written musicals, TV shows, and now a new book sharing the exact steps that she took to heal herself, her body, her mind, and her soul. Her story really is a testament to what becomes possible when we step outside of the matrix, listen to our higher knowing, and reclaim our own script. This is not just about healing lupus, it's about radically rewriting the way we see illness, identity, and freedom. Donna, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Louisa. I don't think I have to say anything. I think you just said it all. Real
I
pleasure
love
to be here, though, and share anything, really.
Yeah, I'm so excited to get into it. For all of our listeners who know, I my life changed, and the reason I'm here today is because I had a spiritual awakening about 2.5, 3 years ago that changed the trajectory of my life as I know it. So I'm really excited to chat with you about it. And one of the things that I learned about you is that you recently described that at 63, you're going through a major reset. How has that sort of shifted and shaped your identity now as to who you are as a writer, a performer, and as a free spirit?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a great question. So, yeah, I just turned 63 in May, and I guess I always saw myself as a very youthful spirit, kind of an old soul with a youthful spirit. But aging as a woman has been quite, I want to say, it's been an adjustment, and being able to sort of calibrate my badass spirit again, because I was starting to get into the story of, oh, I'm getting old, or oh, it's just maybe my success is behind me. But I was very much able to reset in a number of ways. Right after my birthday, I actually did something called the Landmark Forum. And this is not an advertisement for that by any means, but I just kind of call it Consciousness 101. And it really just helped me to get clear on what is the story in my head, what is the fortress that I'm making up, but then I'm claiming it's real. And then I spent all my time, living something that I actually made up. And so I'm here. I realize that, life is a choice to be happy on a daily basis for me. And I actually recreate myself on a daily basis. And what I'm going for now is to be a creatively fulfilled badass who is a clear-minded and effective communicator and divinely guided. So, yeah. So the effective and clear communication is something that I feel like that's how I'm going to get my life in the next however many more years I have, which I think, because I'm so, I feel so healthy, I'm sure I'll be living into my 90s. But I feel like it's in the communication I have and in the relationships that I build in that communication that affords like anything's possible. So does that make sense?
It does, and it brings me to the question, right, about the matrix. So, how
Um,
did stepping out of the matrix bring you to this, to seeing it this way? Because I know for a fact that when, at least for myself, when I was completely in it, I did not view things the way that you just described them and the way that you choose to live your life today.
well, I see the matrix, and I'm as again, the man-made stories that we make up, all man-made edifices, if you will, and where you are what your identity is, or what you think people think of you, or what you think. And you can't always believe everything you think, because we're so conditioned by what happens to us when we're young, which is really where we get um, you know conditioned into the matrix. And which also goes back to, or will go to, the how I cured myself of lupus. But the matrix, for me, when I stepped out of it, and I actually, though, like I said, I did have some help. Like, I needed a reset, which is why going to that landmark seminar was so helpful to me. And when I saw that it was all made up, and there might be a collective agreement about that it's all made up, but when I saw that it was all made up, I truly did have this experience of no fear. Because for the last couple of years, I have to say that fear and regret were sort of running my life. I'm not saying I didn't have wonderful moments and haven't had some, lovely blessings, etc. But I was sort of waking up and just living in the past, and living and feeling like I couldn't, like, what happened to my indomitable spirit that, has gotten me where, in the past, where I've been free. So let me just get back, because so realizing that it is kind of all made up, or that I made it up, and there's a lot of collective agreement. Getting out of the sort of, when I say the matrix, it was where there was just a clear quantum space of possibility, and no fear exists, at least for me, in that space. I also, 3 years ago, became certified as a quantum healing practitioner. And in quantum healing, the way that I was taught, that there's only an eternal now, and that's where all the magic can happen. So so for me, sort of stepping out of the matrix again, it was like, oh yes, it exists here. And in that space of where anything can exist, I'm really at choice to how I want to make it up, and who I want to be, and what I'm committed to, or what my values are. And yeah, and I'm very much committed to living my best life, and really being love, and light. And I just love people, and I love I just love having I think everyone is sacred, and I really love reminding myself and others, of their sacred quantum abilities to do anything.
Yeah, I love that. That's beautiful. And it sounds like it all started maybe when you were about 29 years old and with that lupus diagnosis. So I kind of want to go backwards and
Sure.
kind of rewind and talk about that. How did that come about? How did you first of all realize that something was going on that brought you to that diagnosis? And how did your creative spirit respond at that time?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I just wrote my, I call it a booklet. It's not really a book. It's like maybe only 40 pages, but it just tells what happened to me, how it happened or when I realized I was just really sick, and then the healing protocol, etc. But it actually starts when I was little, I should say, because um, when I was 5 years old, I had a sort of paranormal experience. And this is a spiritual podcast, so I can
Very
like just
much.
let it rip, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I was told by, it was like an angel, or it was audient. I didn't see the angel, I just heard it. And it came from the right side of my brain, which is how things usually happen. It, and it was like a man's voice though. And it said, is your last life as a human, when I was 5. And then I remember just like stopping in my tracks. And then reincarnation was like downloaded to me. And I got a glimpse. Well, this is pretty out there, but I heard about Atlantis and that I'd been a man in most of my life. So literally at age 5, I was like, what the heck? And ever since then, that's when I started like seeing energy and sort of like a CAD drawing. The grown-ups would be talking and I'd see like buildings being built, and I wouldn't really know what they were talking about, but I kind of could zone in on it. And at times I'd be like, well, did you ever think about this and that? And they'd be like, oh, well, anyway, it was sort of, when I was 5, I got like the download of like, and because it was my last life as a human, or that's what they said, I think I've always had this like mission, like I want to get it right, or I want to, a purpose to, to have the best life, to be able to share what I know, to be able to, have health, happiness, love, and joy, and all of that. So that started at 5, and then I started performing at 9 and writing, but had a very sort of difficult, even though, I love my family, but there was a lot of verbal abuse and sort of very patriarchal trauma that had occurred. So I can remember thinking, because when I was 8 years old, I was already like broken. And I remember thinking, well, maybe it's my second to last life. And I remember saying at one particular time with my dad that there was sort of like daily or nightly trauma experiences. And I just remember when I was 8 saying, I'm never going to get angry at anyone ever again. I'm already a lost cause. I was like martyring myself. So I said, I'm already a lost cause. I'm just going to take it out on myself, because I was so afraid to model the behavior that had been given to me. So, and I bring that up because that really made a difference in my lupus diagnosis, because there is a mark of not standing up for yourself that has been found to be in lupus patients. And so it sort of started back then. But so it's sort of, there's always a childhood of, and I hate to say abuse and trauma, because, I love my dad now. I've worked out the stuff, but it was very, very difficult. And but I went on to perform, and the outside world seemed to really like me when I was a kid. And I was on a children's television show at age 11, and ended up going to NYU Drama School, and performing as actress, singer, dancer, model, waitress. But when I was 29, and I just had my first child, and I started experiencing joint pain in every part of my body, and so I went to the doctors, and it was a very difficult diagnosis. At first, they thought I had fibromyalgia or fatigue syndrome. I forget, something fatigue syndrome. They thought I had Lyme disease, or that I was making it up. And this went on for a good 8, 9 months, and then what happened was I had sprained I think it was my right knee at a step class, and was, had to be on crutches and protocol, etc. And as I was walking with my crutches, my left knee, it was like someone hit me with a crowbar, and I fall to the ground, and I couldn't get up. And anyway, that was when there was like, there's something wrong here, that my good knee is worse than my sprained knee. And then they actually did some more tests, and it turned out that I did get the lupus diagnosis from an ANA. My blood work showed that an ANA is anti-nuclear, I believe, antibodies, and that's a sign of lupus. So that's when I got the diagnosis.
Wow, and that's pretty like that's quite a trajectory, right? Because it's almost like it started really early on. And like for me, in retrospect, which I think is true for a lot of people who kind of live in the spiritual world, is like when you look back, if you look back for you when you were 5 years old, you could probably almost understand the why things happened the way that they happened, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the why this sprained ankle, which is what brought you to this, what brought you to ultimately to the diagnosis. So I'm wondering for you, as we talk about, kind of how that happened and your performance. How did that change? How did the lupus diagnosis change your life as a writer, as a performer, when after you got it?
Um, well, at the time, interesting. It only took me about a year and a half to cure myself of it. But also, I just really want to, and it's all in my book. I feel like I've seen people go like, "Oh, check out the
Yes,
book," but
yes.
this is a book called "You Can Heal Your Life" by Louise Hay, who is like, she's just so incredible. She cured herself of cancer, and this woman, like, I dedicate my book to her because, and she was a pioneer. She's now deceased, but Hay House Publishing, she had created and started. But in this book, You Can Heal Your Life, she has a whole, I don't want to say encyclopedia, but it says the problem, the probable cause, and a new thought pattern. And this is where I got the lupus. The thought pattern was better to die than stand up for oneself or myself. And then she has a new thought pattern. And but anyway, I carried this book around since I was 20 years old, and then 9 years later, and I thought I was just using this to not be a victim of my kind of low self-esteem in my sort of childhood. So then when I finally got the disease, that's when I went back to the book, and it really helped. So I just wanted to give a shout out to that.
Thank you. And that kind of brings me to your own book. First of all, what is the title of your book? So for our listeners, because I'm
Right.
sitting
And
here assuming everybody knows.
it is called Overcoming Lupus, A Personal Story.
Okay. And by Donna.
More, Moore. And
All
it will
right.
be, I can certainly let people, if they're interested, know when it come out. It'll be coming out soon. And I also have some other things I can share, and on my Instagram. I'm a 63-year-old Instagram girl.
I love that. And for listeners, as we continue to talk about it, but For anyone listening right now, everything that Donna's mentioning, especially her book and all of her resources that she will mention, we will be linking those in the show notes and in the description. So look out for those as well. We'll continue our conversation here, but I wanted to know that you can find them in the show notes and in the description as well. So
Thanks.
about your book, though,
Yeah, sure.
is your book focusing on sort of these experiences that you've had, the healing from lupus using a spiritual approach, sort of like the approach that that Louise Hay kind of took, that you carried around with you for 9 years?
Well, I would say she was my foundation. What, and the book, like I said, and it's a short read, but what the book does talk about my childhood. It also talks about, I was a writer as a child. I used to channel as a writer, and I I wrote a play that made it on the pilot of the series of a TV show when I was 9 years old, and when I was 16 years old, my father read my diary, and I was horribly punished for about, I don't know, 9 months to a year. And it was a horrible situation. And I felt internally violated. Uh, and I didn't write until I was, until I was 35 years old.
Wow.
And by then, though, I was cured of lupus. What I say in the book is, like, lupus is now a five-letter word that really has no meaning for me, except it's been over like 33 years now. For me, I'll tell anyone, because I keep my healing by sharing it. And I feel like,
Mhm.
I feel like that could be in anything too, not just your healing, but like your happiness, or by sharing it with others, you get to recreate it for yourself or experience it. And but to the book, though, I do talk about my past so that people can understand where where I sort of had these belief systems about myself. Although I think even if you have a wonderful family and you have perhaps evolved or transformed parents who don't take their shit out on you, I do think, though, that there's a reprogramming that we all have as humans just by being human on this planet. So I think that one could also have low self-esteem, even if their parents are really wonderful. So I just want to put that out. For me, maybe it was just clearer because I had this background. But so for the book, though, I talk about how it happened and me getting the lupus. And then I also talk about how, when I decided to cure myself, and what had happened even with writing down Louise Hay's wonderful affirmation, which I truly believe, I was still debilitated. I was still had to crawl up the stairs. I still was living, having to take large cocktails of drugs. And I also had just really bad fatigue, and I was suffering from depression. So it wasn't that great. And I was also told I couldn't have another child, because what they said was that the birth of my baby was the catalyst for the disease. And it had probably lived in my body, since I was young, so they said that I couldn't have another child. And then the doctor was telling me about this support group. I was living in Connecticut at the time, and this support group at, I think it was like at Avon Hospital or something, that my husband and I went to a couple weeks later, thinking that the support group would help me to, I don't know, learn to hack the disease, or I mean, in my mind, or just to live with it. And I write about this in the book. We walked into the auditorium, and instead of me, like, it was nothing like I had expected. It was just people talking in monotone voices, and it was just very clinical. And I just saw unhappy faces, mostly women, and distorted by steroids. And I'm sitting there, and it was really, it was like this, I don't know, this moment, this amazing moment where I'm sitting there. My husband was right next to me, and this voice said, I don't know, I can't cuss, can I? It said,
I'm
it
not
said,
sure.
it goes, you're going to get the F out of here, because this is not happening. You're not living with this. It was like this weird, it was like, I wrote about it much better than I speak. I'm a better writer than I'm a orator, but I just I got up. I must have only been there for 20 minutes, and I tapped my husband on the shoulder and I said, we're getting the F out of here. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I walked out. I don't even know if I slammed the door, but and it was in the summer. So it was really, really hot. And we just drove home like 2 hours in silence. But I knew, I don't know, it was like this magical thing, because I knew that the answer would be channeled to me. I just knew it. And then sure enough, they say when the student's ready, the teacher appears, and the protocol was channeled. And I was so obedient, and I listened, and the first thing, and I think this was the strongest thing that I did, and this is all in the book, but well, the first one was the sun pact. And I think I might have done that even before I went there, because sun is seen as, like, you're not supposed to go out in the sun if you have lupus. And if you're a human, or if you have children, or you got to work, or you play sports, or you just, want to be alive, it's all of a sudden becomes, you feel like such a victim of your circumstances. So I made a pact with God, or the sun god. And I said, if you let me live my, take, my daughter for a walk, or I was on some sports teams, play games when I actually have the energy and I'm not in pain, or, just let me live my life without this fear of you, son. I said, I swear, I promise to never lay out in the sun again and use the sun as a conceit to get a tan. I will wear protective clothing. I will wear sunscreen, but I'm getting out there, dude. And if I promise, so that helped me to not feel like a victim. So the Sun Pact I have in the book as the very first protocol. But when I came back from this lupus support group, it was like, it said, do not gossip. And I'd never been a big gossiper, because I was, pretty confident. And my mother was a great power of example of just being a very kind and loving person. But I realized, so I just wrote it all down, but the do not gossip, I think, is what shifted my consciousness to create so much positivity that the disease could not live. And do not gossip is not just about others, because the kind of gossip you do to yourself and the shit talk you do, excuse the lang. So not only what I was told, and when I say told, it was like channeled to me, was if I didn't have something positive to say about another person or myself, keep my trap shut. And I did. I only and I also realized sometimes you want to vent, even if someone does something or attacks you, you almost be like, you want to vent it out. And I have to admit, 30 years later, I am a normal human being who I still vent, even though I try not to, but I do. But when I was sick with lupus and my life depended upon it, I had a reason to like follow this protocol. And it was really interesting because I learned that by not allowing and being committed to not gossip, to not put a bad word on anyone else or on myself, even if other people were talking about it, like I wouldn't contribute unless I had something positive to say. I just kept my trap shut. I learned compassion for myself for the first time. And I'd always like thought I had it for other people, but I just didn't really have it for myself. And like when you have stuff for other people, but you don't have it for yourself, like it's not in a quantum world, you don't really have it fully. But I didn't quite know that until then.
Yeah.
So the do not gossip was, and I have to say, if there was out of the other one was the next one was eat organically, and this was 33 years ago when it wasn't as popular and probably a lot more expensive, etc. So what I did was I started just getting stuff that I ate every day, like coffee. And I really like, for anyone who drinks coffee all the time, go organic because you just don't want the pesticides and all that GMO or whatever. Like, just have it be as clean as possible. I ate organic chicken if I was a meat eater, but or fruits. But anyway, eat organically. The next protocol was joy, joy, joy. And what it was is do whatever brings you joy. Like be in joy, because joy is actually a healing medicine. And that's something that, I always like knew that joy was a superpower. But when I was sick, it just has medicinal properties. And so I have a chapter on that. And if there's anything you love to do, then you do it. If it brings you genuine joy, then you go for it. It's like your life depends upon it. Affirmations, and I get that from Louise Hay. And then this is also a really big one. And I'm 63 now, and I still do this. I feel like a teenager, but it's permission to sleep during the day or at any time to regenerate myself in mind, body, and spirit. So like I literally get up sometimes, like I sleep till 10 or 11 in the morning. I also don't necessarily, I wake up in the middle of the night, and sometimes I'm up for, at 3 o'clock till 6. And I also did have insomnia a couple years ago before I kind of reset myself. But this ability and permission to sleep made me, and I was lucky enough to work as a writer. So it wasn't like I had to get to an office at 8 o'clock. So I want to, you have to like live and honor your life. But,
Absolutely.
but this permission to sleep, I think, is probably as important as do not gossip. And my experience with, and I even get a little, I can see my own daughters now who are amazing, but sometimes she'll get not a stink eye, but it's something like, well, Mom, you're waking up at 11 in the morning. Like, because a lot of people, I realize most of the world gets up at 8, but I don't pressure myself to do that because it doesn't serve my health and my well-being.
And you know what, with everything that you're sharing, the theme that I keep hearing, that my takeaway from it all is, do all of these things that you put out into the quantum,
Field.
into the quantum field, and you put out into the universe and you put out into the world, and that you allow yourself to experience, like the joy and like the, permission to sleep. They're all things that, from over here where I sit, it's a transmutation of the energy that we have been taught should be otherwise. We have been taught that we should sleep till 8 or whatever time, right? We are supposed to get up and go and do this and do that. And people who sleep till 11, we look at as, oh, like, you're kind of lazy. Like, what are you doing with your
Yeah,
life?
you're irresponsible.
Irresponsible. But the reality is some people's bodies, everybody's body requires something different in order to feel what it needs to feel and to feel healthy and to be healthy. And the same with when you mentioned, the do not gossip is really big, because that was the first, when I first caught on to this theme that I'm kind of catching from what you're sharing, is this transmutation of, let me stop this idea that my body needs to do this, that I need to live this way, that I need to take these steps, and let me do what feels good, which do not gossip at first doesn't feel good because we're so used to that. It's normal. We all gossip. We all say a little something about our neighbor.
Yeah.
But from where I'm sitting, what I received was that you weren't putting out anything negative. You were so aware of what you were putting out, and it had to be intention. I feel like setting that intention of, if I didn't have something positive to say about someone else or myself, then I wasn't saying anything. And to me, when I think about energy, I think about you transmuting that, like
Mm.
changing that negative energy into something that is now positive, or then otherwise neutralizing it.
Definitely. And also when you have an autoimmune disease or any challenge really, but especially autoimmune disease, well, or any challenge, sorry, like this sort of boot camp that I did, that I'm talking about, and how I cured myself of lupus, I really want to put it out there that, especially for the book, like I did this boot camp for a year or a year and a half, like my life depended upon it, until I was cured. And also have to be careful to use the word cure, because I know that there's a large contingent of people who are like, don't say that, we'll come after you if you say you're cured of lupus. But so I'll just say I healed myself of it. And but when my life depended upon it, it was like the carrot and the stick phenomenon. Like I needed to follow this protocol, no matter how strict or even uncomfortable, unreasonable it was. But as soon as I was able to heal myself, and I truly was, I do have to admit that there were times I did slide back, and I'm a normal person, but I do find, like, now that I'm 63, and I still feel like I have a few more successes in me, and I've seen how I've like let my age start to stop me or different things. I'm like, no, my life depends upon me having a high vibrational level, being at a 0 point, so to speak, so that I can create out of nothing and not and be unstoppable. Because I think that is what, I'll just speak for myself, being unstoppable, not letting other people or my brain of what I think other people think, or the story that we put, not letting anything get in my way. And so I just want to also put that out for people who are like if you're going through a problem or a challenge with your health, like, I say, just try this on for a little while and see how it goes. And then, but it's not like you have to take it on forever unless you choose to. And I do say, though, I try not to gossip now. I'm just not, like, I find sometimes for me, it's about really trying to let go of resentment that I feel when I feel like I'm being attacked or people are coming at me, I find I can get into my thing. So it's learning, using the same practices, but I just want to be really real. Like,
Yeah.
I'm no angel anymore.
Yeah, and I can totally like attest to that. It's like we try our best every single day, and with practice comes the ability to do it easier, to not fall into those patterns as easy as maybe it was at the beginning. But we're still human, and there's still the law of polarity. In order for some light to exist, there's also a shadow. So,
Yeah,
um,
and if I may, because just in case with me saying I'm not an angel anymore, but I actually do spend my day, as I was saying, recreating. Like, I just really want to be responsible for that part of me, the duality, or what do you say, the polarity,
polarity.
and I do endeavor to really let that go, so I can be clean, and live my best life.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. This has been amazing. I think I could probably talk to you for like 5 hours,
This is
and
awesome, Lisa. Thanks.
this is awesome. As we begin to wrap up,
Yeah.
a couple of things. One of the things that I'd love for you to share is what are some of the resources that, somebody could go to that you offer that our audience, our listeners, our viewers could kind of tap into if they're themselves kind of finding themselves in a difficult place, whether it's lupus or maybe stuck in their creativity or anything like that, that you would say, hey, maybe start here.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Uh, well, one thing, and this is, I actually have a free thing to give people if they're interested. But one thing that I've just recently created, it's called a 0 point nervous system reset. And I have like a 4 minute one that I do on a daily basis, because even if my head sometimes says, oh, I'm going to let this go, and I'm, um, you know, love and light, my nervous system, my body, will be like, just remember the trauma, etc. And the so I find by doing a reset program, or 4 minute, or a 20 minute, that I'm able to be responsible for my energy and kind of step out of the matrix again on a daily basis. I mean, the thing is, no matter tools that we have, it's not like tools are meant to be used on a daily basis or whenever needed. It's not like, oh, I'm born again, healthy, and I never need to, try out or take a tool of forgiveness or sun pact or do not gossip. So this reset, and if people are interested, they can email me, and I'll be happy to send the the reset, a PDF of the reset for them, or they can DM me on Insta, and it's my lupus recovery story but so, and I'm all new at this, so but happy to do that. My suggestion is to get to a place of zero if someone wants to recover, or wants to write, wants to create, whatever it is that you want to do. I think that would be the first thing that I would suggest to do before you create anything. Create out of nothing, out of zero. And I'm also here to support. On a number of ways, and there are certain not just protocols, but I'm happy to share, individually with people and hearing what their story is. I'd be happy to share how I think I could help or what I could recommend.
I love that. Thank you so much. I've added Donna's Insta to the chat here. So if you're
It's
watching
just getting going though. So,
yeah, so if you're watching live, feel free to click on that and it'll also be in our show notes. And also, we will add Donna's email to the show notes in the description so that you can get a copy of that 0 point nervous system reset, whether it's the 4 minute or that 20 minute. And if you want to have a chat with Donna, you will also have the links to access her on her Insta, on her socials, and her email. And, as we always say here, it is so important that you start from within. Whatever you choose to create, the importance is that it comes from within. And Donna's story really is a soul deep reminder that you are not your diagnosis. You are not what you're currently experiencing. You are not what happened to you. You are not your past. You are not the stories that the world has handed you. You are something so, so far more powerful than that. And you are a free spirit with the ability to rewrite the script. If you're listening and wondering where you are or where in your healing path or your awakening journey you could use some help, feel free to reach out, whether it's Donna or whether it's us at here at Flying Upstream. We are both here to be of service. But as always, beautiful listener, viewer, you should always continue to keep questioning, keep exploring, and of course, keep flying upstream. Until next time.